Sky Black. For Todd Anderson, player here from Roanoke, this was actually his first trip to the Players' Championship. Did miss last year, but between him and Brad, their records have just been outstanding here. Just one loss on Todd's side. Defeated Jacob Wilson to get a bye yesterday in modern play. Winning record in every format. You know, he prepared here, and it shows.
Yeah, a very good tournament so far for the Roanoke crew. Tom Ross falling a little bit short here, eliminated during the wild card round earlier today. But Todd and Brad both in the top 4.
Well, Todd will be the first person with a creature on the board. It's a copy of Jace Vryn's Prodigy. Now remember, these two Jeskai decks are different, whereas Todd has Soulfire Grandmasters and Monastery Mentors. You're going to see Hangerbacks, Seekers, and Mantis Riders on Kevin's side.
It's a very different style of deck here, even though the colors are roughly the same. Kevin much more aggressive, and Todd much more controlling.
So Kevin will match 2-drops with Todd. His is going to be a copy of Hangerback Walker on 2. You know, that's a card we really haven't seen much of this tournament or in Standard at all recently.
Yeah, it's a little bit on the slower side, and a lot of the decks now where you would imagine it would be good against are packing Utter End. So has definitely fallen off the radar, but the same thing is true of Mantis Rider, and that does not seem to be bothering Jones very much at all.
Well, you look at Todd's hand and you see his removal spells, copies of Crackling Doom, Fiery Impulse, Kolagon's Command. None of them are particularly situated to get around a Hangerback Walker. You know, gone are the days when we'd see 3 to 4 Silk Wraps in this kind of deck.
Yep. A lot more spell-oriented now with Jace and various spell mastery cards.
And Todd, he'll resign himself to using 2 spells to break through the Hangerback. For the turn, he loots away a Murderous Cut with Jace, and he then Fiery Impulses the Hangerback Walker.
I guess Kevin Jones was using my commentator token as his Hangerback Walker tokens over the course of the event, but now on camera, you know, we got to make it a little more clear. Got to make it a little more clear. Love you, Kevin.
And Kevin, we saw him do this to win last round, and he looks like he has a pair of Mantis Riders in hand again starting on turn 3. I mean, if you could pick any deck to pick your opening hand, you know, Jeskai aggro with double Mantis Riders, that's up near the top of the list.
Puts a lot of pressure on Todd to have specific answers here.
And here we go. Kevin's going to take to the skies yet again this tournament. Here's a swing. It's Mantis Rider and a Thopter token in for 4. First damage goes for Kevin. Todd drops down to 16.
I think the real path in this matchup for Kevin, it's Mantis Rider backed up by Dispel. I think that's his best route.
That's huge.
That can deal a lot of damage. It can allow him to break serve against Todd's entire turn. If the answer is something like Crackling Doom, that's the line of play. I think that gives Kevin his edge.
Jace Vryn's Prodigy is going to loot away a Shambling Vent. And for Todd, he's going to go with some aggressive lines of his own. It's Monastery Mentor plus Duress.
And this hand's pretty bad news for Todd. You see the Mantis Rider and an untapped 4th land and the Dispel in hand, so your natural instinct is, all right, we'll get rid of the Dispel, of course, but there's Treasure Cruise and Valorous Stance as a leftover, and Treasure Cruise can give Jones some punch if the game goes on for a long time. Also keep in mind that Jones is playing with several main deck copies of Jeskai Charm, so Todd can't afford to go all the way down to 1 and stabilize the game. He's got to be conscious of his life total.
Yeah, I mean, this started for Kevin. You know, turn 3 Mantis Rider, turn 4 Rider plus Dispel. That's going to do a number against this deck. So Dispel is the take, as we'll go back over to Kevin Jones. Todd at the ready with a Crackling Doom for the first Mantis Rider, though his second removal spell, Kolagon's Command.
Not efficient and not an answer to Mantis Rider.
Now, on the other side, Todd, with that Monastery Mentor play, he could just ignore Mantis Rider and attempt to race.
That's going to be tough to do. Kevin's deck is a lot better situated for that kind of game than Todd's is. He might not have a choice. That just might be how his resources line up. But I do not think that Todd is as well suited to play that sort of game as Kevin is.
Well, here we go. Second attack, Mantis Rider, and an attack puts Todd down to 9. As we go back to Todd, he'll loot with Jace. Now, this does mean if he finds a Black Source, he actually could be set up, I guess, to kill all of Kevin's creatures.
Yeah, and I think that he drew a Bloodstain Mire this turn, which means that he's got it all set up where he can Crackling Doom and flash back the Murderous Cut. I suppose Fiery Impulse works as well.
So even with double Mantis Rider, we said this was one of the key cards on Kevin's side. Todd may have found a way through.
But the upshot here, at least, is that Kevin is going to have his graveyard filled up and make the Treasure Cruise a little bit cheaper to fire back with next turn, but with Monastery Mentor in play, Todd's putting on pressure of his own.
Great, wow. So Crackling Doom takes care of one Mantis Rider. Fire Impulse takes care of another. 2 monks were made. Mentor and monk swing. That's double prowess for 7. Now it's Kevin who's at 10, and just surgically done here by Todd, duressing the Dispel, double kill spelling the Mantis Riders. This was Kevin's draw.
Yep.
And now Kevin looking to be facing lethal next turn. And what a turnaround. Third Mantis Rider, it will attack down Jace. You see his remaining cards, his own Jace, a Valorous Stance, and a Treasure Cruise.
Just has to hope at this point that Todd is out of spells.
Well, the Jace is down. 1 land in Todd's hand. Without another spell, Todd doesn't have a great attack.
I believe Todd does have Kolaghan's Command as a leftover, however.
It's pretty good, especially when you have a Jace in the graveyard. We'll see how Todd wants to play this.
The only risk here about sitting in everything and using the Kolaghan's Command to blow up whatever Mantis Rider on whatever block it makes is if Jones has found the last Dispel in his deck. But even then, there's only 1 copy, and Todd doesn't really have an alternative play to get the Mantis Rider off the table, so I think his hand is forced on the attack.
So here comes the team. It is Monastery Mentor and 3 monks. It's 5 damage as it stands. 1 spell would put it up to 9. Kevin's going to be forced to block. And things have gone south in a hurry for Kevin. This was one of his best draws. We mentioned that, but Todd just able to keep pace.
Demoralizing game here for Jones to have Hangerback Walker into Mantis Rider Dispel on 4.
And 3rd Mantis Rider the next turn.
Yep. And it's looking like Todd's going to be able to fend all that off.
See Kevin looking at what he could possibly do to get by here. He's going to have to block.
Yeah, I think Kevin's unfortunately in a spot here where he can't beat an instant anyway, so he has to act like there's not one there.
Kolaghan's Command is the play. 2 damage to Mantis Rider, and Jace is returned to Todd's hand. So prowess will happen on all the creatures. Another monk will be made. So Mantis Rider down, 1 monk token down, 5 damage in at Kevin. He drops to 5. And now a Jace in hand for Todd Anderson. He'll crack a fetch land, cast that, and pass. Kevin on an empty board. He's going to need to look for 9 damage, but just not going to be able to do it.
Yep. Yeah, even his aggressive deck is not going to be able to come up with 9, or I suppose 8 points at this position.
You see Kevin, yeah, that Valorous Stance, Treasure Cruise, Jace, have been left in his hand. But really, without a way to kill Monastery Mentor, that seems to be what dealt Kevin in.
It's the same recipe we've seen over and over again here. You need to be able to kill everything. Even if you do kill everything, the game's going to go on for a long time. There's no guarantee you have an edge. But if you ever fail to remove one of these 2/2s from the table or fail to remove Jace, on their own, they provide too much of an advantage.
Treasure Cruise from Kevin. There come the kill spells he was so long waiting for. Fiery Impulse and Wild Slash drawn.
Well, he can still take care of the Monastery Mentor and the Jace. If Todd floods out, there's still some hope here.
All right, both monk tokens are down. Kevin's at 5. He's dead to any non-creature spell off the top from Todd. But Todd, his last card in hand is a land he draws. It's going to be a Fiery Impulse.
Which I doesn't
actually do it.
That doesn't work.
Because Kevin doesn't have a creature. So Kevin will drop to 2. Next turn, however, that will be enough. Except Kevin, yes, he has Seeker of the Way. So there's a chance.
Well, unfortunately, I think the Seeker is just going to get killed at the end of Kevin's turn, and then Lethal will come rolling on in.
Yeah, and it'll be hard because Kevin actually has a Valorous Stance that could save the Seeker. And Todd's giving him an out.
Well, I think he can attack and just respond to any spell anyway.
Okay. Land, here's a swing. Seeker blocks. Todd says, okay. Here's Fiery Impulse on one of the monk tokens. Seeker's going to try to prowess. Now Todd's draw of Murderous Cut makes this one trivial. He will Fiery Impulse back on Seeker of the Way in response. Does Kevin have another instant?
Todd has a cover with Murderous Cut anyway.
Well, he does not. So game 1 will go to Todd Anderson and Jeskai Black.
Again, a somewhat demoralizing game there for Kevin. His draw was, it looked exceptional, and Todd was able to pick it apart.
Yeah, so we will see. Okay, Kevin down again. Now he's going to get to be on the play. That's the kind of draw. I don't want to speak too soon, but if Kevin was on the play, I wonder if that gets enough damage across.
It's a very different game. I mean, he's getting at least one more attack in several times with the Mantis Rider. Todd was at 8 at the end of this, and Kevin almost kind of came back in that one. I mean, if Todd drew a couple lands in a row there, Jones would have come back, I think. So Jones's draw was exceptional. Anderson was able to fend it off and turn it around, but at the end there, it looked a little closer than it looked, 3 turns previous.
All right, well, we're going to go ahead and look at the players' sideboards here. So we'll start with Kevin Jones. We've seen this one a couple of times. Arishan Cleric, Den Protector, Outpost Siege, Disdainful Stroke, Dispel, Dromoka's Command, Radiant Flames, and Roast. Now, he does have can touch for light green splash in the sideboard, but may have some other weapons for the matchup as well.
Well, this is kind of an odd mixture of cards here. I think the one Dispel is a no-brainer. That one can come in for sure. And if you're going to have cards like Outpost Siege and Den Protector in your sideboard, that seems like the kind of matchup where you'd want to bring them in. It's going to go on for a long time. And Kevin needs to weather the storm of a lot of removal spells.
So we might see a more heavy card advantage sideboard plan out of Kevin Jones. Now, from Todd Anderson, I may expect some of the same things. On his side, a Dispel, a Kolaghan's Command, 3 Negates, 2 Ob Nixilis Reignited, a Duress, a Painful Truths, 3 copies of Radiant Flames, 2 Roast, and a Ruinous Path.
So I think the 3 copies of Radiant Flames are great here. It takes care of Mantis Rider, takes care of Secret of the Way in most spots. I think the 1 copy of Ruinous Path is an acceptable answer to Mantis Rider, and with Kevin having Gideon and Sarkhan in the deck, I think that one's easy to bring in as well. I like some mixture of the Dispel and Negate type of stuff, but the battle is really over creatures at the end of the day, not spells. So it's easy to go overboard with those kind of cards.
Yeah, I mean, so when he looks at Kevin's sideboard, he'll get to see that. The card that stands out to me that Todd may want Negate for is something like Outpost Siege.
And the Planeswalkers as well. There aren't that many cards that require Negate as a response, but the ones that Jones has, they're very good.
Yeah, Gideon has always been a heal for Jeskai Black to deal with.
Yep.
Well, we'll get underway for Game 2. We're going to take a second and tell you about the sale we are running here over at StarCityGames.com. That's the holiday sale. We've been running that one all month. Up to 50% off select promos is the current sale we're running right now. That will end Monday at 11 a.m. So we will then add new items next week. So be sure to check back for that sale as well. The all-month-long deals here at StarCityGames.com for the holiday sale. We go ahead and go back to our match now, though. Kevin Jones is going to be on the play. We said this was going to be tough, and it does feel like Game 1. After seeing Game 1, this may be tougher than we expected.
Yeah, Todd was flush with the removal spells for Mantis Rider. His deck doesn't really have all that many. Fiery Impulse counts, but it's hard to have that on time. At least Kevin's probably likely to get some hits in. You have Crackling Doom, a couple of Murderous Cuts, Utter End's an answer, but it's not that efficient. Todd found a lot of those cards. If he fails to do so, and Jones has a similar start, I think Jones can win the game fairly easily. But once Todd has blunted the initial offense, there's a lot of pressure for Jones to find Treasure Cruise is really the only way to gas back up.
As we're being here, the players will be starting shortly here for Game 2. Yeah, and that right, and I do kind of agree with that in Game 1. Now, one thing that was impressive for me was Monastery Mentor on Todd's side. It let him have a really low investment way. He got a 3-drop out in play. Once he did, he could just continue to kill Kevin's things, and by the time he got the last removal spell off, Todd had a lethal army just waiting for him. So if I'm learning this from Kevin's side, you have to respect Monastery Mentor, but I'm concerned if I'm Kevin about getting into this kill spell trading game. That's Todd's game, not his.
Yeah, that's the squeeze, and we saw it in the other round as well, where if you don't kill any of these creatures, if you let them unchecked for a turn or two, they can generate enough of an edge where it's impossible to come back. But if you're all on shocks trying to break up those kind of creatures, the game drags out for a long time. And then cards like Painful Truths, Kolaghan's Command, all those sort of things, they end up beating you anyway. So you need to have a little bit of those kind of things. I would be surprised if Jones cut his Fiery Impulses, for example. I think he does need to interact that way. But I don't think the matchup is in a place where he can afford to bring in cards like Roast, which are also answers, but a little bit more expensive and dilute the aggression of his deck.
Now, what are your thoughts on a card like Jeskai Charm in this matchup? This is something that Kevin has 2 copies of main deck. We've seen it be used as a kill spell for cards like Gideon. Now Todd doesn't have any copies of Gideon today. Do we still like it, though? It gives him burn.
I'm not a huge fan of burn against Jeskai Black because of Soulfire Grandmaster. I think in the order of it doing its business, Jeskai Black often picks up a lot of life. And so just explicit burn spells, just lava spikes, are unlikely to be good unless you're backing it up with a ton of pressure. Atarka's command is a slightly different animal because your deck's very low to the ground. You're often killing them before they can even get something like Soulfire Grandmaster plus Roast set up, and you're packing a lot more shocks to keep them off balance for those sorts of plays. From Kevin's side, though, the game is likely to go on long enough that Anderson will get into a spot where he can play Soulfire Grandmaster and do something with it. Crackling Doom or Fiery Impulse or something along those lines. And I don't think Jones's deck has so much aggression in it that he can have Jeskai Charm be a productive card if even something like that happens.
Yeah, I do see that. There are some instances that were not really carrying their weight for Kevin. We saw Jeskai Charm. Valorous Stance stuck in his hand for most of that first game as well.
I think Valorous Stance is an easy card to cut. It's 2 mana, it fizzles a removal spell, and doesn't even do anything against Crackling Doom. So I think that's an easy card to cut.
Also, last thing that Kevin hadn't even touched on this one, he has Hangerback Walker in the deck as well. That game, we saw Todd spend a kill spell on it, so I suppose it's as good as any other creature. Now, it didn't really have much impact, I suppose, even after the Thopter was made.
I think that I don't think that Jones is in a position where he can consider cutting any creature except maybe Jace, because he needs to have a critical mass of aggression. So I would be Jace to me seems like a card. You know, Todd's got a lot of shocks, and Jones's spells are not really all that good in the matchup.
And when Jones is trying to be aggressive, a turn 2 Jace, I mean, Jace is really powerful, but it does take a long time to set up, and if he wants to stay away from the late game at all costs, Jace, that's what the game Jace wants to play.
Right, that would be my approach. I'm not necessarily saying I would cut Jace. Jace is very powerful, but it's a card I would at least consider cutting if I was in Jones' seat, and I would definitely cut it before I did anything with Hangerback Walker.
For Kevin here, he's good. Todd is as well. We're underway for game 2. Mystic Monastery is going to be the start for Kevin Jones. Trading lands for Todd. And for Kevin, once again, it looks like he could have a turn 2 Hangerback Walker. He's choosing to go Hangerback Walker over Seeker of the Way here.
I don't mind that here. You know, Seeker of the Way is just very likely to die to a shock or a roast or something. This curve's a little bit more efficient in that he can pump the Hangerback Walker and cast Seeker next turn.
Well, Todd, we'll get a look at what Kevin's hand is. Todd going back to Duress. We saw those in the deck game 1. They haven't gone anywhere. And he's going to get exactly the card he wants. Kevin lands 3-4. Gideon, Fiery Impulse, and Seeker of the Way. This one's easy.
Yeah, well, unless Todd has some answer to the Gideon and a creature he cares about preserving, most likely it's Gideon, though. Play that long game. Let Jones glut out with a little bit of removal.
And Todd will select Gideon. A win for Todd. Gideon is a card that once it's on the board is really strong against Jeskai. And this, to me, seems like a matchup where Todd may not be able to board in too many negate-style cards for Gideon.
Yeah, there's a lot of pressure on Todd to keep his creatures and to keep his removal spells in the deck. So there's not a whole lot of wiggle room for him to be bringing in negates.
So Duress doing work. We go back over to Kevin Jones. Turn 3. He has a 1-1 Hangerback, Seeker of the Way, Fiery Impulse, and lands. And we'll say I want to set up. Imagine we're going to see Seeker of the Way join the battlefield here.
Alongside a Hangerback Walker pump, most likely.
Hangerback going to pump main phase for Kevin. Does not want to get caught out there and only get 1 Thopter.
Yeah, it's probably the most common mistake I see people make in Standard is waiting until the end of their opponent's turn to pump a Hangerback Walker, having their Hangerback Walker killed in response and being down a Thopter.
A good play from Kevin. You see, Todd, there's some of the sideboard cards we were looking for. His draw for the turn, a copy of Radiant Flames. And Todd really just has morphed into this control deck. You see Radiant Flames alongside Painful Truths in his hand. And this one's great. Kolagon's Command, 2 damage to Seeker of the Way, destroy Hangerback Walker.
And now he's got Radiant Flames as a follow-up to either this board or any creature that Jones happens to add.
Kevin almost running on empty. He has 2 Thopters left and a Fiery Impulse. But Todd's still at 20 with a sweeper.
Jones desperate for either Gideon or Wingmate Rock.
Well, here's the off the top. This said it was Kevin's tournament. If he's going to draw like that, it just might be.
I mean, it had to be this. I think that if he misses here, Todd's hand's good enough, and the Radiant Flames catches so much of the follow-ups that I think Jones might be quickly down 2-0. But with getting off the top, that's a lot of pressure on Anderson now.
Kevin Jones. Oh, goodness. He still might have some fight left in him. We go back over to Todd Anderson. He still has a Radiant Flames. He still has a Painful Truths. A lot going Todd's way. Picked up Soulfire Grandmaster, and I believe a copy of the Ruinous Path in his hand as well.
Yeah, one on the board, and I would imagine the hope here is Ruinous Path. Hopefully you don't draw anything, or you draw another small creature, and then the Radiant Flames can take care of everything else.
Well, Kevin may draw well, but he's going to have to keep doing it because Todd's deck has all the answers. Ruinous Path takes care of Gideon.
It's Wingmate Rock time. Right off the top.
Just right off the top. Conveniently, it's a 4 toughness. Gets around. All right, that's the draw.
Here we go. Another Gideon also plays. Sarkin.
It's going to be a land. That's not exactly the Wingmate Rock you wanted. Here's a swing for 4, Todd down to 14. And for Kevin, it's just a pass of the turn.
That's the first stumble here from Jones, and given the quality of Anderson's hand, it might be a lethal one.
Yeah, Todd not giving Kevin any wiggle room to miss a top deck. Radiant Flames cleans up the leftovers, and now there's Soulfire Grandmaster for Todd. He's going to start getting those life points back. Go to Kevin. He's going to hang on to the Fiery Impulse in his hand, draws land 6. So Impulse takes care of the Grandmaster. Kevin plays land and says, go.
My preference here would be for Kevin to keep pulling the lands out of his hand. I think he failed to do so last turn. He has Treasure Cruise in his deck, so you want more mana in play so you can cruise, gas up, and cast everything in the same turn.
For Todd, Painful Truths nets him 2 lands and a Monastery Mentor. He drops to 10. Plays Prairie Stream and passes. Now, interesting from Todd, he values that Mentor highly enough. He wants to wait to get value out of it.
Well, he's got another in hand, so at the minimum, he wants to get 1 token for his trouble if Jones has happened to draw another shock. Next turn, he can play land number 7, play the Mentor, and cast the Utter End, and even if Jones has a shock, he's still left over with a Monk.
Jace Vryn's Prodigy, the draw for Kevin. He's going to play that one out. Has 4 mana up. Now, that last card is another land, so Kevin all in on this creature right now, hoping he can convert it into a Planeswalker, maybe refuel. Todd, though, not going to want to let him do that. As we see, Monastery Mentor. It cleaned up so nicely game 1.
And what's nice about this is Anderson can't feel all that comfortable at 9. With Monastery Mentor, he gets to turn around and present lethal to Jones in a matter of turns rather than wait all day long to close this game out. It's a problem with the previous build of the deck. Anderson, the old build of Jeskai Black that he was playing before, one, the game would go on for a long time, so time in the round could be an issue. The other one, it took the deck a very long time to close out, so you could get to a low life total, and then things like Siege Rhino could steal games from you where you were comfortably ahead. With Monastery Mentor, now you can turn around and win the game very quickly.
Utter End was cast. It took care of the Jace. Kevin's playing off the top of the deck again. And he will redraw Jace. And for Todd, what a draw here. How about a Treasure Cruise? Looks like I'll start with Utter End. That's going to exile Jace again. Another Monk into play. Both creatures pump. And 3 more cards coming Todd Anderson's way. He'll pump, make another Monk pump again. It's a full value Treasure Cruise.
I believe Kevin Jones' Cinderella run through the Players' Championship may be coming to an end in about a turn.
I mean, this Monastery Mentor right now, this attack set up to deal 7, 4 creatures next turn. It will take 1 spell off this Treasure Cruise to present lethal. Todd's going to find it with Kolaghan's Command. And here's a swing. It's 4-7. 4 off the Mentor, 3 off the Monk. Kevin down to 9. We pass back to Kevin. His draw. Passes back. 2 lands. And the extension, you have it. Todd Anderson is the first player to make the grand finals here of the Players' Championship.
Congratulations for a player who missed the Players' Championship last year and said to himself, I'm not missing it again, after watching his friends play and watching Brad Nelson win. Was able to qualify via at-large bid, and now in the finals, perhaps a score-off against Brad. We'll find out in just a round. But also congratulations to Kevin Jones. Like I said, the Cinderella story of the tournament, a crowd favorite, a fan favorite, a player who does not take himself too seriously, who loves Magic, and is so happy with the performance up until this point.